The problem with his theory. Thinker claims the measurements gathered from his new species identification system prove Bigfoot is real. He's claiming he's supplying scientific proof because measurement is science, measurement is scientific. He's proposing that the work he's doing is the science of photogrammetry, which he defines as, quote, taking measurements from photos. If that's what photogrammetry is, then yes, I guess he is doing scientific analysis. But unfortunately for Thunker and his paying subscribers, that's not exactly what photogrammetry is. Simplified, photogrammetry is the art and science of extracting 3D information from photographs. Thunker isn't extracting 3D information from photos. He's simply superimposing 2D lines on a flat image and then comparing the lengths. He's actually ignoring any 3D elements or effects of perspective and presenting the data as science. The data he's collecting is disingenuous and full of errors. The chunky, brightly colored bars may look fun, but in reality, they are full of mistruths and fallacies. Or maybe just delusion. Simply measuring a photo with lines placed on a 2D plane may work if you're trying to apply pDNA to a character such as Mario in his earlier 8-bit adventures, as he only existed as a flat figure. However, the scientific model for pDNA, Patty, exists in a three-dimensional world, and the image used to gather the proportional measurements shows Patty angled away from the camera. So limbs and body parts are bent and positioned in such a way that it's impossible to gather dimensional information about them by measuring on the flat 2D image. All of Thunker's comparison bar charts are created from 2D measurements. His use of 3D skeletons is simply a smoke and mirror trick, as he doesn't use the skeleton to get his measurements. He reverts back to eyeballing the 2D image. As the Patty figure in the image is moving away from the camera, the effect of foreshortening on its limbs is going to be significant. A bent leg moving off into the distance, being measured on a 2D plane, will suggest the leg is much shorter than it actually is. The fact is that his results are flawed at the very first step. All the bar charts and comparisons in every single one of his videos is wrong because of this. He can claim he solved the mysteries of Bigfoot. He can shout down the skeptics all he wants, but the truth is that he's either a con man or doesn't quite understand what he's doing. The problem with his execution. Thunker claims the most difficult part of his species identification system is that he can't measure these creatures in person. So, he always uses 3D skeletons, quote, I scale them, pose them as close as I can, making sure that I'm measuring from major body joint to major body joint. I can see the logic in that if you were then going to use the 3D model to extract your measurement data. But he doesn't. Nor does he seem to spend any time on actually placing the skeletons correctly. It actually seems as though he's going out of his way to convince us that a human skeleton simply won't fit. While watching him line up his warped skeleton, he states that to make it work you have to extend the full arm, you have to shrink the legs down to lower the hip into place, and then you have to extend the spine to raise the head back up. Why? Simply don't shorten the legs. That way you won't need to stretch the spine and the hips will be in a perfectly adequate position. This is the first stage of his grand illusion. That skeletal placement cannot be taken seriously. It's so bizarre. He can't even execute his own advice and guidance on how to gather pDNA adequately. He needs to spend much more time posing the skeleton and considering more logical positions. However, that goes against his entire business model. pDNA is not proof big furry giants exist. pDNA is not science. pDNA is not the death of Bigfoot skepticism. pDNA is flawed.